Happy Half Price Chocolate Day! That is, of course, one of the most important holidays of the year. You can't hear me? The mic is right there. It shows it's playing. Can anyone else hear me? Says Hedgepig voice. Very quiet or not at all? I'll get the microphone closer to my face. Huh. Okay. That's not supposed to be. Let my stream tech look at all this and try to figure out what's happening. We're also dropping 23% frames.
Hold on, I'm just summing up the thought. That's echo. That's this. Okay, try now.
Hello, hello, hello. Does that work better? Echoey? Is the echo on? Okay. I'm wondering about the drop frames. Anyway, so we've got some issues going on. We have no idea why. Okay. Better but crunchy. Okay. I'm not sure how to fix crunchy. Anyway, I apologize if we're having some issues here, and we obviously are. Today is our day where I'm going to actually be making two different soups. I'm going to be making a vegetable beef soup, kind of like a stew. It's going to be thickened, so that will definitely do it. I like larger pieces of meat, larger pieces of vegetables, so that tends to tip it into the stew category from the soup, especially if you thicken the broth. I'm going to be doing that, but because I'm having problems right now with my stomach not wanting to deal with beef, I'm also going to be making a creamy vegetable soup at the same time. So, let's get started with the, this is what I'm going to be making, like a half batch in for the vegetable soup. Now, none of my recipes are up for this on the Discord, but it will be soon. The creamy vegetable soup is really tasty. I am going to get started, however, with the beef. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a little piece of doggy hair from a dog that has been gone for a year and a half. The dog has been gone for a year and a half, and yet her hair still graces us from time to time. So I'm going to start with 2.5 pounds of ground beef. You can do this with chuck roast cut up, or sirloin tip roast if you want. Chuck roast would probably be the best choice. In which case you cut it into the size that you want. And then you will need to brown it. But I've got hamburger to get rid of, so we're using hamburger. And actually, oh my, ugh, I sprayed myself with hamburger blood. Ugh. Excuse me while I mop that off. Okay, my grandmother actually taught me the vegetable beef recipe with hamburger in it, so And she always said basically you need to have onions, you need to have carrots, you need to have potatoes, and then whatever else is seasonal that you like, put in there. So today, first of all, I am going to cut up the hamburger meat a bit so it's not still in the log shape. Just makes it easier to process. Um, I try to keep the meat in larger pieces, even if it's hamburger, because I don't really care for soup if it's got hamburger in it or sauces that have hamburger in it. If what you've got is unidentified crumbled meat that's so small it's uh, you know unidentifiable really what it is, and just as a texture in your mouth instead of uh, an actual presence. Uh, I will put in about a quarter teaspoon of salt on my grinder here, and that is conservative. Normally, what this would call for would be about a teaspoon. Um, but because my mother's going to be eating it, we're not going to be putting that much salt in it. I am going to add half a teaspoon of ground, loosen that up a bit, half a teaspoon of ground rosemary. I got a nice new grinding set for salt and pepper that came with a third grinder, so I have my lifelong desire for an actual spice grinder for my rosemary. In the past, to make ground rosemary, I have taken and put it in a coffee grinder and ground the whole thing fine. And uh, this is an easier way of doing it. I don't see sage anywhere. I do not see sage anywhere. And I've got a tablespoon of parsley. And okay, so the parsley's gone. Sorry, it's hard getting used to a boom mic when it's hard to get used to a boom mic when I'm used to one that turns with me, and if I move, it moves with me too. And I am putting half a teaspoon of ground sage in this. And I season it at the meat stage because then the meat gets seasoned. There's nothing grosser than, having a mouthful of meat that just doesn't taste like anything. And by doing it this way, the seasoning will still get on the in the broth. So you're kind of doing two steps at once there. And I've got that set on medium high so that the meat will start to brown. And here's my hydration. I've got some ginger ale here. And I did not say it, but welcome in Mrs. Nog. I don't know if Mr. Nog is with you too, but if he is also welcome in. Welcome in. I am going to start processing. I'm going to start processing some of the vegetables that I'm using, and in addition to the potatoes, you can see, I am also going to be putting in most of a sweet onion. And that actually needs to go in at the same time. That actually needs to go in at the same time that the meat does, because it does need a little bit longer time to cook so that it's got a nice, it's not crunchy basically. Um, and the mushrooms also need to go in at the same time. I'm adding mushrooms to this, along with some green beans that were a nice surprise in the grocery store. And I like green beans in this. I've also got some sweet peas, I believe. Those are frozen, so those are much easier to get. There's something that happens, I don't know what it is, to green beans if they're frozen from a store, and it just makes them bitter in my taste. Not happy with that. I don't like bitter green beans, and cook them, not cook them, doesn't matter. They just always taste bitter. So I prefer to use fresh green beans when I can find them. Well, I think Nog was up really early today. I saw him in a stream at about 2 a.m., so that was pretty early for him. Going to get rid of the little papery leavings of the onion, which don't cook down and are kind of gaggy in your throat if you actually get them in anything. I'm just peeling the outer layer of the onion off. Make sure I get everything. And watching mysterious things happen on my screen as I'm doing this. Chinese homework. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Teen Nug. Alrighty then. So we're going to take and dice this. And if you were using a chuck steak or roast or something like that instead of hamburger, I would add probably 2 teaspoons of butter to the frying, or this is a Dutch oven, which basically means it's a kettle that can be put in the oven as well. It's oven safe, unlike a lot of the stovetop kettles that you can get. You do have to be very careful that it does say oven safe, and this is a pretty good one. I have got links to all of my equipment now in the stream equipment, and the latest pictures are in the stream food recipe pictures, basically stream food pictures. And we actually went live at some point today, I think about noon, on YouTube with my last stream, so you can catch it there if you cannot catch it on Twitch for some reason. But as always, you can find my stream recipes, pictures, and little bits and details, updates on things that are happening in my Discord. You can also find my equipment list in there, the things that I've used on my stream and are part of the basic setup of my stream. You can see that there too. We do have a YouTube channel, Cooking with Hedgepigs, and that is where, after the streams are legal to go there, it goes to. And boy, we're just having all sorts of fun today. The music is turning off because they're running ads on my Spotify that I'm using for my royalty-free music. But as I said, I have a YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel is called Cooking with Hedgepigs. And all of my VODs are there after they have left Twitch. So if you can't find something, say you want to go revisit my cheese balls, for instance, that I put up, you can find them there. And I'm going to take most of the onion and put it in here. I'm going to be putting a little bit into my vegetable broth. Thank you for the fa la la, honey. So this is going to be about 3/4 of a sweet onion. And for approved equipment on cutting onions, if onion cutting bothers your eyes, you can use a diving mask or goggles, and that will protect your eyes from the fumes. So that is a definite choice. If it bothers your eyes enough, then do something like that that will help protect them. Pink pig! Okay, you have redeemed a pink pig. Let me get the onions in here, and pink pig will come out for a little dance. And then you get to meet a surprise visitor. And, alright, so we have got pink pig! Yay! It's a pink pig! She's, as you can see, very excited about the vegetable beef soup and about the vegetable creamy soup. Yay! It's a pink pig! Pink pig! Yay! Pink pig! Pink pig, pink pig. That was Pink Pig. Now, this is one of my Valentine's Day presents I promised to show on stream. It is a Cupid stitch. He is here. As you can see, he's got a little Cupid bow and arrow, and he is wearing some stylish wings on his back. And he is a mysterious visitor from possibly outer space, maybe from Hawaii. And Stitch says, mahalo. Okay, so I am going to now check on the hamburger. Start turning it a bit. As it browns, we have got the stand set up for a second camera, but unfortunately we do not yet at this time have the camera. We had my old camera that I originally started with, and that it's a dead potato. It keeps flickering, won't stay on. I am adding 8 ounces of chopped up cremini mushrooms to this, because as usual I want to fill this pot as high as it can go. It's just how I roll. I'm adding the mushrooms and onions in here so they can brown and reduce their liquids with the beef as the beef cooks. And I've got some steaming beef going on right now, but it's just gotten to the point where it's hot. So, along with that, I am going to be putting in some celery. And I'm putting in 3 stalks of celery to go with that. I'm going to get the potatoes out of my view for now, because they'll pretty much go, the potatoes will pretty much go in last. Alright. So I'm going to take the celery, and you could cut it down smaller than I'm going to if you want to. I'm cutting these stalks in half, and then I'm going to basically dice them. I'm okay with the celery pieces being larger. It just adds to the heartiness of the stew, basically. And I'm going to start calling this stew because with a lot of meat and a lot of large cut vegetables in it, you are looking at the heartier version of a soup, which is called a stew. And that seems to be what the difference is between a soup and a stew. A soup is generally smaller bits. You can all fit on a spoon at once, and a stew is just kind of like eating a liquid pot roast. Which sounds tasty right now, actually. So I am continuing to cut this and be annoyed by my wedding ring, which is flipping on my finger. Green onions? Yeah, you could substitute green onions. My cousin Tara's husband says he can't eat regular onions; they're just too strong. But he likes green onions, so when my cousin is making her recipes, she substitutes green onions, and I find there's a difference in flavor, mostly because I use sweet onions, and green onions are just a regular onion shoot, and so they have a sharper taste than a sweet onion does. Sweet onions, of course, are actually sweet in varying degrees, and it's partly from the fact that they water the living tar out of those suckers while they are growing, and that makes for a sweeter, milder onion in the first place. Plus, there's a varietal influence as well. I'm going to leave these aside because it's not time yet to put them in there. I am, however, going to bring this down where I can see it. And yeah, the meat's starting to brown. Time to turn it. And that will also get the vegetables that I put on top on the bottom where they need to be so that they can start browning. Now, the reason for browning your meat, you could just dump everything in, not bother to brown your hamburger, not bother to brown your roast you've cut up, or your steak bits, or whatever it is that you're putting in here for the meat. The reason for browning that is you get a deeper flavor. It strengthens the flavor of the meat, and if you're talking about roast bits, it also seals the roast. So it doesn't leak out all of its juices, and thus you end up with pieces of roast in here, pieces of meat that are still tender and juicy, and they avoid the boiled meat syndrome, where if you just boil the living tar out of a piece of meat without browning it, what you're going to end up with is meat that, despite being in a soup or despite being in a gravy, is dry. And this is something you can avoid just by also doing yourself a favor and deepening the flavor of the meat in your soup by browning it. And it doesn't need to be black, but it does need to be browned. So I'm going to put this back on the stove and let it continue to work. And meanwhile, I will move on to the next ingredient that's going to go in here. And that is some baby carrots. And I got some rainbow baby carrots, just for color, really. They taste like any other baby carrot, but they do have pretty colors to them. So if you want to make your dish a little prettier and not just be a bowl of brown, you can get baby carrots that are white and baby carrot colored. You can also get red carrots, so this gives you a variety of colors. And that's kind of nice to have in your soup just for visual interest. And I am crunching one of the white baby carrots, mostly to prove to myself that it tastes just like a baby carrot. And it does. It's nice and sweet and juicy. I really love raw carrots. I can eat a ton of these things, but I don't really care for them so much when they're cooked. So this will end up being about half a cup of carrots added in. So I'm just basically going to take and cut these little bad boys in half carefully. And then I'm just going to cut them into little half discs. And interestingly enough, in the store, the baby carrots are not any different in price from the rainbow baby carrots when they're in season. So it's a good chance to, you know, take an opportunity and have something like this. You can show your kids that this is indeed a carrot, but it's a colored carrot. And then if you want to, you could do something around the holidays, and if it's Halloween, you could serve up the little white carrots and say those are little ghost carrots. Carrots helped the UK during World War II. How so, honey? You used carrots to lie? I'm sorry, you're going to have to go deeper into that. That's not anything I've ever heard before, and I don't know whether or not you're just funning me. Because the UK had radar technology that worked against the Germans, we had to hide the fact, so we started the myth that carrots helped you see better in the dark. That's not true? I thought the vitamins in the carrots did help your eyes. It's a myth the Royal Air Force started. Oh, that's interesting. Now we know. All of those parents that are telling their children to eat their carrots so their eyesight's better are just lying. Not to mention the fact that that turns Bugs Bunny into a liar. Bugs Bunny, who, as you all know, is part of the Looney Tunes that everybody grew up with, he always said that carrots were good for eyesight. Maybe it's just a way to get kids to eat their carrots at this point. The vitamin A only helps if you have a massive deficiency. Well, people that don't eat vegetables and don't take their vitamins probably do have deficiencies. So, we'll just keep going with this. I do not, as of yet, by the way, have any heat on under the second pot here, which will be the vegetable soup. Honestly, it's going to take less time to cook. Oh, that's the black beans. Okay. For a protein source in my vegetable soup, I'm going to be adding in black beans. So that'll add a nice protein hit to it. I could have put tofu into it, but I don't particularly care for tofu in soup. unless you're talking about miso soup, and I'm not. So I would just prefer to have beans in it. So it is a good vegetable source of protein and of course fiber. And the whole idea that eating beans makes you gassy, well, it can some people, but if you're used to eating the beans, it doesn't actually have that effect. So I was quite happy with that when I went vegetarian to find out that it did not actually have that effect. So I am actually getting closer to a cup of carrots here now. So I will probably add some of that to the vegetable soup that I'm going to be making. Fingers are safe. Yay! The song is a lie. No, my life is destroyed. Sobs. Well, you've still got Pink Pig, so how destroyed can your life be? I'm going to add some more carrots onto here because, well, I'm going to be adding them into here soon. I'm going to add the celery in. And again, I'm just going to use part of the celery I've got here because I'm going to be putting some in the other pot as well. So I'll bring that down here. And this one has about 1/4 of an onion. This is going to have about 1/2 cup of celery versus the other having 1 cup of celery, or a good 3 stalks. And I'm going to add the majority of the carrots here. They'll add a sweetness to the soup, which will be a nice break from some of the other influences that are in it. And then I am going to be adding about 1/4 cup of carrots to this. Like I said, this is not a full batch of soup here. This is just for me to eat for a couple days. So I've got that in there. And at this point, I am going to get some vegetable broth. And add 4 cups of vegetable broth to this. And like I said, I finally managed to find a maker that doesn't add garlic to things. So I am adding in purchased vegetable stock. I'm now going to add this to the heat. And turn the heat on underneath that. What was that? Ah, hey, good evening and welcome in, Badass Mama. I'm happy to see you in here today. I have got the heat. I am making 2 different soups. I'm making a vegetable beef soup. I'm also making a creamy vegetable soup for me. I am going to put that lid on there and take my vegetable beef here and mix the meat around in it again. Get everything going. I've got nice big chunks of meat which will fall apart and be chopped apart by me as well. I've got carrots, I've got rosemary and sage, I've got parsley, a little bit of salt in here, and I have got my mushrooms and onions, my rainbow carrots, and my celery. And that's going well, so I am going to now add some beef stock to it, and this beef stock is unsalted. And that is done basically for my mother that's on a salt restricted diet. So I'm going to add the beef stock to it, and I am going to be adding 6 cups of stock. And the difference between stock and a broth is one is made with bones and one is not. Got that from LD, who is a lovely cooking streamer sometimes, but mostly he streams games. He is a professional chef. Well, I'm allergic to pork, honey. So, instead of making a vegetable beef, make it with chicken. It tastes just as nice as a vegetable chicken soup. Alright, I am going to put this on. Ooh, it's much heavier now with liquid in it. And put the lid on it so it will come to a boil while I finish chopping up vegetables to go in things. Let's see, the next thing I'm going to cut up are going to be some beefsteak tomatoes. And they are going to be added to the vegetable beef soup. I like the beefsteak tomatoes because they have so much more of the meaty portion of the tomato than seeds. And they make absolutely excellent sauce tomatoes. They also are my choice. Yes, I do. My husband has delectable corners, and upon occasion I must nibble on them, and he tries to fight me off, but I persevere. Mwahaha. So I am going to add the tomatoes to the beef soup. I'm not going to add them to my vegetable soup. I am going to cut around the stem and then dice that as well. Yeah, I might as well add it actually to my other soup. So I'm going to add 1 medium-sized beefsteak tomato, or you could do the equivalent of 2 to 3 Roma tomatoes, or as my mother always called them, plum tomatoes. Mostly because they were shaped like long plums. And I will close that up again. And I'm going to cut up the other tomato for my soup. These are beautifully sharp again, honey. Thank you. I just hate it when you're using a dull knife and you end up mushing the vegetables instead of cutting them. And if you're talking about a hard vegetable like a potato or a carrot, a sharp knife will cut through it, a dull one will skid, and that's when you can get into some issues in the kitchen. And we don't like those. We do not like kitchen issues. Talking about going forward, I'm going to be probably putting together a stream for Thursday or Friday, not sure which yet. And I'm going to be making chicken a la king on that stream for everybody. It's a really great comfort food. It has chicken and
I don't remember agreeing to that.
peppers, and it has, and that's bell peppers, not hot peppers, and that also it has pimentos in it, and it's in a gravy, a chicken gravy. It's got mushrooms, peas, lots of good things. And it's a wonderfully filling dish. You can serve it over noodles, you can serve it on biscuits, on toast, or the way we usually do it, we put it on steamed rice. It's wet and has left my
Toast.
table here a bit sloppy. So I'll lift that up. And then dispose of our little bits we have. Okay. While I've got this close, I am going to do seasoning on this. So I am going to add in about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And this is sea salt I'm grinding here. And then I am going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of rosemary.
Grind that rosemary.
Alright, and then I am going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of sage.
How much?
And then a bunch of parsley, we'll call it a tablespoon. And I might as well at this point add in the 15-ounce can of black beans. Here you see the black beans, and they have been drained and rinsed because they come with kind of a starchy liquid around them, which isn't terribly pleasant to cook with.
It looks horrible to me, that liquid, when you have to drain the beans.
Yeah, it looks pretty bad when you have to drain the beans. It's this kind of, I'm going to call it bean gravy effect, basically. Okay, I have got that in there. Now I am going to put it back up here so it can.
Hey,
What?
stretch.
Stretch. All right. Ooh. Oh, that was lovely.
And
Thank
drink.
you. And hydrate. Yum. Drinking actually LD's favorite drink, which is Canada Dry Ginger Ale. Thank you very much for the stress and stretch and the hydrate. And this is another one of my massive collection of thermal niche pullovers. What am I trying to do? I want to see up here.
What are you trying to do?
I am reading back. She has no idea. Love the soup without the beef. Yeah, you could make it with chicken, or you could do it as I'm doing here, making it as a vegetable soup with vegetable broth instead of beef. I have made a lot of chicken noodle soup, and I have two different
Does someone
versions.
want to clue her in?
Clue me in. If you're hearing a man, that is Andrew talking.
Hello, Mrs. Nugatron.
So they can hear you. Cool. No clue. This is fun.
Apparently, yes. It's almost like I demuted myself ages ago, and they've been hearing me for a while as I made comments in the background.
Awesome. Yeah, so I have made chicken noodle soup in the past. I've made a classic American chicken noodle soup, and I also have one that is Thai based, and it uses a I'm trying to remember the name of that thing now. Starts with a T. Anyway, it's a sweet and sour chicken broth, basically. And that is tamarind. That's it. It's a tamarind broth. The tamarind chicken broth, it uses rice noodles instead of regular noodles. And it's basically just very Thai influenced. These are green beans, and you normally have to de-string them by snapping one end and then you pull it across and it pulls the string out of it. That's why they call them string beans. And I am going to take and cut these little guys into a smaller size. I have seen people cut them up even into just little discs and use them to cook that way. I don't like them quite that small, but I do like them not full-size green beans. So I'm basically cutting them into thirds to about inch-long segments, and that will help them cook up easier. And these are fresh beans, not frozen, because as I said, for some reason, frozen green beans, unless they're from a garden, so if they go through a commercial processing, they taste really bitter to me, and I don't know, I just don't like it. So when I get the opportunity to get a good price on fresh green beans, I grab them. And there's a lot of different recipes that my family uses them in, the most famous of which is actually my grandmother's green beans with onions and bacon. And you take a whole bunch of green beans, you fry a pound of bacon in the bottom of a kettle, and then you add peppercorns and a little bit of salt. You add an entire sweet onion diced, and probably a couple pounds of the green beans, and then you fill it up with water and you boil it for about 2 hours, and it actually creates a bacon broth, and my family eats it like soup. And that is actually a recipe that I came across while I was doing recipe research, trying to recover some of the old recipes of the family, and found out that recipe is over 100 years old, and it actually came out of the Midwest. And it's interesting. My grandmother's mother actually traveled across the United States with her husband, sons, and daughter with the railroad. that was being put in from New York to Washington, and she traveled across in a actual covered wagon. So that's kind of interesting. All right, I am going to add this, which is approximately a cup. Approximately a cup of cut green beans. And I'm going to add them in here so they have a chance to boil and get tender, if this will come to a boil soon. And it probably will if I stop opening the top and adding things to it.
Wow.
Okay, and discard those. Now I'm going to cut the rest of the beans to go into my soup, because I really like green beans in soup. So, I have mentioned to various different people that something I'm going to do as another celebration giveaway when we reach 200 followers, I am going to give away a copy, just one, of my cookbook. So the lucky person will have about 400 of my recipes and my family recipes. Yes, the heat is on medium high. You don't want, with these particular cookware, this hard anodized from Cuisinart, it cautions you not to cook on high because you will actually scorch the bottom of the pot. And it's the way it's constructed, it has a solid plate that it takes a little while to heat up, but not too much. And once it's at heat, it gives you a very even temperature and cooking across the entire surface of the bottom. But it also works kind of like a cast iron, in that once it gets to heat, it stays at heat for a long time. So
Another pink pig.
we have another pink pig. All right, hang on here. I will get to pink pig after I finish the beans there. Pink pig! It's a pink pig! Yay! It's a pink pig! Close up of pink pig. She's ready for her close up, Mr. DeMille. Pink pig! Yay! It's a pink pig! Yay! It's a pink pig! Yay!
She makes a great football, by the way.
Yes, he has abused Pink Pig by punting her down the hall a few days ago. And I would like to say it was a horrifying experience, but you know, she seems to like it. What can I say? She's obviously a little speed demon. So I can't really get too mad at him, as she's not mad at him. I would like to have put zucchini in
I respected
this.
the pink pig as I punted her down the hallway.
Yeah. Anyway, I would have liked to have put zucchini in this because I think zucchini goes really well in vegetable soups. But they were out of stock. I don't know whether or not that means that they just didn't get any in, with problems in their supply chain, because there's a lot of that going around these days, or if it was a matter of they just sold out. So no zucchini for me. Okay.
Now they just looked at him and went, bleh.
Your people don't like zucchini. Yeah, that's the fun of a family. You get these people who don't like things that you grew up with and loved. My husband, for instance, will not even try an artichoke. Will not even try it. And my entire family grew up eating those during the summer, and we love them dearly. Whether they're marinated or if we just cook them and eat them with mayonnaise. And, yummy. But the husband doesn't like it, so more for me. So
See,
occasionally.
you say try anything, Mrs. Nogatron, but have you seen some of the things they eat in other countries?
It's actually quite easy, Badass Mama. You need water. So if you're going to be cooking like 2 or 3 of them, you rinse off the artichoke, you cut the stem flat with the bottom of the artichoke. You take water and you put them into a pot, and you fill up the water about halfway up their little bodies, and you add about a teaspoon of salt, and then you want to add an acid source. So we use apple cider vinegar in my family because it adds a nice flavor to it. You can also use lemon juice, and it's the same amount for each. You add about a half a cup of vinegar or a half a cup of lemon juice to it. And I'm assuming you're using probably a many quart pot like this, about a 5-quart pot. And if you don't want to have it pickled as strongly, because that's actually what it does, the acid, it just adds flavor to it. If you have artichokes, unless you're just taking them right out of a can, you are probably going to have a slightly pickled artichoke, and that's what the acid does. So acid, salt, water, and then you put them in, bring them to a boil, and cook them for, depending on the size, between 45 minutes and an hour. And to test them, you take them out and turn them upside down, and you slide a fork into the stem. And when it slides in easily, your artichoke is done. And then you can take and drain them and either eat them hot, or you can refrigerate them and eat them cold. And they are good both ways. So now I'm going to add about a cup of my green beans to this. And then put the rest of the rubble of the green beans in the main pot.
Bunk.
And I wish you guys could smell this. The spices are combining with the broth. The broth is coming up to a simmer. So it's got this lovely flavor building in the pot. It's got this lovely aroma every time I open the pot. And, oh, it's just amazing. All right.
What all you made in your vegetable bean soup? Tell us.
In the vegetable bean soup that I've made, I've got a 15-ounce can of black beans that have been drained and rinsed. I have got a quarter of a sweet onion. I would normally add about a half, but my stomach's kind of acting up, so I didn't do that. I have got about half a cup of rainbow carrots. I have got a stalk of celery diced. I have got about a cup of green beans. It doesn't have any mushrooms in it because I put all the mushrooms in the beef. And then I am going to be adding in potatoes as the last ingredient of the vegetable beef and the creamy vegetable soup.
Potato.
Potato. They have already been peeled by my husband,
She
for
can't
which
peel.
I thank them. because, yeah, I have a difficult time peeling potatoes. I'm so ashamed. Not that
Kind of
ashamed.
cook can't peel potatoes.
Well, one that hasn't done it in 12 years. Because
Oh,
when I
that's
first
amazing.
married my husband, I was still using, to be quick, I used instant potatoes.
I
And
almost divorced you for it.
you did almost divorce me for it, but I made him a chicken pie that used the mashed potatoes on top, like a shepherd's pie, but made with chicken. And they don't have a specific term for that one because I guess they don't make them in England. And I also made a dinner that just had mashed potatoes. Ow, that was hot.
Got a hot. 11 times you burnt yourself. You
Yes.
fool.
And this is the same way the condensed steam water on top actually went and dripped onto my leg, so ouch. Okay, so I'm going to leave that alone now to cook, and it should be about 20 minutes. This is still cooking, but I have yet to get the potatoes in it, and once I do, it will be about 20 minutes at a boil.
Can I just point something out here?
What's that?
You have a spoon rest right in front of you. Yeesh.
I know. I'm just sulking because it's not the hedgepig shaped spoon rest. Haven't bought that yet.
You'd have been waiting for a few weeks for it to notice, frankly.
Waiting for me to notice the spoon rest. I kind of know it was there, but I'm not in the habit of having it out here, so that kind of gets in the way of me seeing it.
It's also right in front of you.
Yes.
It's like a flashing neon sign going, use me, and you're like, no, I don't see it.
You guys see what I have to put up with all the time in the little snarky remarks? They do make life interesting.
Look, if you don't want sarcasm, you shouldn't have married an English person.
I know. That really was dumb of me if I didn't like the sarcasm. Alright, now I'm going to start adding the potatoes to this.
And no, you're not wrong, badass. She wouldn't have noticed it if it was a snake.
Yeah, if it was a snake, it would have bit me. Okay. I'm going to... And basically for my stews, I take a medium-sized baking potato. We get them from Costco. They're really nice potatoes. And once they are peeled, I cut them into quarters lengthwise. And then they just go into about half-inch dice. And that
Don't know why
seems
that
to be...
got held up, but there you go. Apparently, bite you is a banned term.
Huh. Okay. That must be something from Twitch, because it's not something I ever put in there.
No, I think it's a Twitch thing.
So... Yeah, my grandma always said that. My mother always said that. You know, it's right in front of you. You know, it could have bit you. Well, I generally find spoons don't bite me, but I get the point. And I have once again got my pot, my 5-quart Dutch oven filled to within 1.5 inches of the top.
I am not surprised.
Yes, but it will make a lot of really yummy soup. Okay, now I'm going to put that there and put the lid on it so it will hopefully start to boil.
Hey, Tina Bug!
Tina Bug! Welcome in, Tina Bug! Yay! Tina Bug's here. And for Tina Bug, I will have Pig come out and say hi. Hi! Hi!
Honey, you're giving it away for free now.
And I will show her the thing everybody else has seen and she has not. My Cupid Wing Stitch, who has a cute little Cupid bow. And as you can see, he's wearing little iridescent wings on his back. And this was my Valentine's Day present for my husband. And Stitch says, mahalo. How are you doing, Tina Bug? How are you going to be... I was really hoping Curie would come in because she loves Stitch. And she even does a redeem where she does Stitch's voice. And she does it pretty darn good, actually. So I'm making two different soups right now. I am making a vegetable beef stew sort of thing, soup. It has 2.5 pounds of hamburger. It has, so far, 6 cups of beef stock. It has half a cup of rainbow carrots. It has 3 stalks of celery, 3/4 of a sweet onion diced in here. It has 8 ounces of cremini mushrooms. It has a tomato. I'm feeling better. I can't eat the beef, so that leads to the second pot here, smaller pot. And, oh, it has green beans in it, about a cup of green beans that are fresh green beans. This is going to be a creamy vegetable soup, and it's made with 4 cups of vegetable broth. And I don't manufacture the enzymes to digest meat, any meat actually. I can eat fish and be fine, but I have to take probiotics in order to eat chicken or turkey or beef. Beef is the one that's hardest on me, and it's not an allergy, not yet, but anytime I eat chicken or turkey or beef, I'm kind of rolling the dice over whether or not my body will accept it or if I'll get sick from it. And I had beef. I had beef, and it made my stomach bleed the other night, so I'm laying off that for a while. I am, however, actually allergic to pork, and that's a pretty violent reaction that I have with it, and it makes my whole digestive system bleed, basically, and be in pain, and it's nasty. So I am also making a vegetable soup here, and it has bean in it. It has a 15-ounce can of black beans, drained and rinsed. It has 4 cups of vegetable stock. It has about a 1/4 cup of rainbow carrots. It has 1 stalk of celery diced. It has a 1/4 of an onion. And it's got a sliced up beefsteak tomato. I am a vegetarian. I was a complete vegetarian when he married me, and that meant basically I could eat fish and vegetarian food. And I'm about probably 50-50 or 80-20. Depending on how my stomach is doing. And then both soups have diced potatoes in it. Vegetarian does not mean vegan. So vegetarians can eat, depending on the kind of vegetarian they are. If they're vegan, they have no animal products at all. None. No cheese, no milk, no meat of any kind, no fish. But I am what's called an ovo-lacto pescatarian vegetarian, which means I eat eggs, I eat milk products and cheese, and I eat butter and yogurt, anything in the dairy family, and I also eat fish. So
I'm a carnivore. I just eat meat.
yeah, Andrew generally just eats meat and whatever vegetables I can sneak in there. And he usually protests and asks very suspiciously, am I very sure that a caterpillar has not pooed in it? I have a parent
have to be
that's
sure
up
about
and
these
wandering
things.
around, by the way.
What's wandering around?
Mom. Okay. She, the gluten allergy is something quite a few of the people I know have, celiac, or they just have a bad intolerance to it. Lactose intolerance is also very common. As far as celiac things, when I put the thickener in this, you can use either gluten-free flour, and this is actually boiling now, whereas the other one isn't quite yet. It's a much bigger
What
pot.
pot never boils?
Well, this little pot's boiling, so I'm going to end up with that soup first. So you can go with gluten-free flour. You can also thicken it with cornstarch if that's okay enough for you, or you can use arrowroot, which is gluten-free. You make your own almond flour. Interesting. That's interesting. You ought to stream how you make that. That would be an interesting one to watch. So basically now I'm just, I haven't put peas in either one of these. Alrighty then.
Ale.
That's okay. They're just frozen peas. They only take a minute to cook anyway. So I'm going to add about a half a cup of peas to this. And hope it hurries up and gets to a boil, or it's never going to end up being cooked. And this, as you can see, is boiling. And it also smells very good. So I've probably got another 15 minutes for this soup to get finished enough that it needs me to make the white sauce to put in it, the bechamel. And the 20 minutes is really to cook the potatoes. So yeah, at one point I was actually considering making my own tofu. They have tofu making kits where you get the soybeans and you put them in a special pot to cook down, and then you basically grind them up and put them through a strainer, and you take the liquid and the kind of slurry of soybeans, and you put them through a strainer and let the what you're left with there will solidify into tofu if you wrap it up, put it into forms, wrap it up in cheesecloth, and lightly press it so you get it either soft or medium or firm tofu, depending on how much you can press it to get the rest of the water out. And the byproduct of all of this is soy milk. When you have tofu, it's scrambled eggs, or it's fried. Yeah, tofu is an acquired taste, but it's mostly a textural thing. Tofu itself doesn't really have a flavor, so it needs to be It needs to be seasoned. It will take on the flavors of anything you cook it with. So I'm very fond of combining it with Thai cooking, so that the sauces and the spices and the herbs that are involved in that actually flavor it. I will also fry it myself, and I use a very seasoned flour for that. And it has lots of herbs in it, salt and pepper. And then when I fry it, it takes on the flavor of those herbs, and it's still kind of a delicate flavor. But then I serve it with some sort of sauce or gravy, or put it into like a stir fry, and it will take on the flavor of those vegetables too. So whatever you put tofu in, if you press the water out of it, so if you know how to use tofu, I'm backing up here. You get tofu usually in water in a little tub. And what you do then is you have a tofu press, if you've bought one, and you crank down to the point where about half the height of what it used to be, and it will press in the next 20 minutes most of the water out of it, and you'll get firm tofu. Now, if you don't have a tofu press, you can put it on paper towels on a plate, and then take a second plate and put it over the top of it, and put a couple 28-ounce cans of tomato juice or something like that on it, and it will also press, not to the greater amount, but once you have the water pressed out of it, you can use it, and then it is free to take in the flavors of anything that you cook it with. And I personally love it if I fry the tofu, and I fry it with it's got salt, pepper, it's got some sage in it, it's got a little rosemary, it's got Parmesan cheese, and it's in flour and panko, and I fry that, and then I combine that onto a sandwich, an artisan roll, and I use a plum sauce with it. It's nice and kind of a spicy and sweet, and it's really yum. Good night, Teen Nog.
Night, Teen Nog.
Okay, so badass mama. I fry my tofu with cinnamon and sugar, and I put maple syrup over it, and then I fry it. Yeah, it does take well to sweet applications. Silken tofu in particular does. You can mix it in with yogurt or season it slightly, and it works as sour cream. And so that's options for sweet tofu. On the other hand, one of my favorite ways to cook it is to take oyster sauce and soy sauce in a pan with a little bit of oil. And first you cook the oyster sauce for a minute or two, and then you put in the tofu, either pre-cut up or just as a solid block. And you fry that on each side for about 5 minutes. Hey, Kind Al, welcome in. Thanks for dropping by.
Hello, Kind Al.
We've got going some vegetable beef soup here, and what is going to be a creamy vegetable soup. And I've got this almost at a boil now, so that's good. And I've got my vegetable soup here that I will have to make a white sauce for, and then add that in to make it a creamy soup.
Creamy.
Oh, good. You might like the vegetable beef soup because it's lots of vegetables in the beef soup. It's got peas and beans and celery and potatoes and mushrooms and carrots and tomato and potatoes. I don't know if I mentioned potatoes, but yeah,
potatoes
lots,
many times.
Lots of vegetables in my beef soup, but also lots of beef. So it's
Beef.
pretty much solid all the way up within an inch of the lid here, and that's 2.5 pounds of hamburger in there too. So magic white sauce. Yeah, I add white sauce to it because it not only thickens it, but it makes it so I can take 2 cups of milk and instead of having to add a quart. So the recipes will be up on my Discord after stream, and we will get the pictures going too.
Sometime after stream when we can be bothered. I was going to say another word, but this is a PG
It is
stream.
good for lots of things. White sauces are what they call one of the mother sauces, and it's used to make a lot of different things. It's used to make cheese sauces and cream sauces. It's used for making cream soups. It's used for just all kinds of things, which is why it's a mother sauce. And you can make it thin and then put cheese in it to make a nice, good quality macaroni and cheese, or cheese sauce to put over the top of your cauliflower or your broccoli. And you can use the cream sauce and put turkey sausage in it, and have sausage gravy for your biscuits, or in my case, in my breakfast lasagna. And you can also make it really, really thick, which is what I'm going to do here. Make it so that it's almost the consistency of wallpaper paste, and put that into a pot of broth, and it will thicken it, and it will make it taste as creamy as if you used more than twice the milk. So that's a good thing to do. Alright, this is still cooking away, and not quite time to check the potatoes yet. So, as I said, upcoming this month, I will be making chicken a la king. I will also be making my chicken lasagna, which is in a sour cream mushroom sauce with Colby Jack cheese. And we have another strange visitor from the north. This is one of my Thai Beanie Baby hedgehogs, and as you can see, she's pink. And I got it probably 8 or 9 years ago now, and I saw her sitting in a little display in an Albertsons store, and my husband swears, because we were both there and we were at the till, and this was over in the cigarette section across the aisle, and he swears I skittered to go get it.
Even the cashier was amused.
I moved quickly because there were only a couple of these left, and I absolutely love little hedgehogs, so I grabbed this and my husband bought it for me, and this is little Meg the Hedgehog. So there's yet another one of my collection.
Got hundreds of them.
I do have a lot of hedgehogs. Chicken lasagna, yeah, it's kind of unusual. It's got chicken and a little bit of sour cream, a mushroom white sauce added in there with the sour cream. It's got mushrooms in it, obviously, and it's also got some black olives. And it's seasoned up, and you make it with the noodles, a layer of cottage cheese, then you put the sauce in there with the lots and lots of chicken, and then you put Colby Jack and mozzarella cheese in it, and repeat the layers, and it just makes an absolutely lovely, creamy, slightly tangy, mushroomy lasagna that's just, I've never come across it anywhere else. I actually got the idea of it from a pasta cookbook, but I changed it and added things in that I like the taste of. So it started out as someone else's recipe, and I changed about 50% of it. So it's now my recipe. And most of the recipes I have, if they're not family recipes, they're something I either just created myself, wondering, for instance, like my hamburger stuffing one, which is basically stuffing with hamburger in it that you pour gravy over. And it was, why couldn't we do something like turkey and stuffing with beef? And I thought about it for a while. I thought, well, the same seasonings would kind of work, but it needed to be a little more than that. So I added my beef seasonings to the bread cubes, and beef broth instead of chicken or turkey, obviously. And then I added cremini mushrooms to make it extra beefy, and I added in some green peas to make it more of a casserole-y one dish kind of thing. Sometimes I add green beans. I've added broccoli to it before. That goes in there really nicely, and baked it and then made a beef gravy and put it over it. And so it's kind of a ground beef stuffing casserole, and that one was basically me. Right there.
Sub.
Oh, thank you for the gifted sub, Tina Bug. That is so generous. That's a good mic spot.
Tinabug02 gifted a tier 1 sub to Snodgitron. This is their first gift sub in the channel.
I don't know what that means either.
Snodgitron, huh? It obviously missed the misses on that, so your name is now Snodgitron. Thank you so much, Tina Bug. I appreciate the gift sub, and I'm sure... Oh my goodness.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you so much for the gifted subs. We have a sub to... let me see who all we have. You gifted a sub to... Oh, it's fighting me. Cuckoo. Cuckoo is, you gifted a sub to. Kind Al. Div Wilson. MPH, who is a chef owner of a cafe down in Florida. You gifted a sub to Badass Mama. I thank you so much for that. That is so generous of you, Tina Bug. I appreciate it. And I know they appreciate it
This is a PJ stream.
too.
Should we really be saying that middle bit?
What?
Ass.
All right.
Bad peep, mama.
I am going to take and bring this down here carefully. Haha! It almost got my leg. And I'm going to find my fork.
Yes, thank you very much, Tina Bug.
Yes, that is so kind of you, Tina. I really appreciate it. And it is resisting me. Ow. Okay, I burned myself.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay, the potatoes are done. So, let me see if the
Well done.
beans are... I'm blowing on the beans so I can taste it, because right now it is smoking hot.
Hot, 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 hot.
Mm-hmm. They're done. Okay. I'm going to put the lid on this and move it to one side. And this is now boiling quite wildly, as a matter of fact, as you can see. So I will stir that around, and it doesn't look to me like the potatoes are done in this one, but eyes may be deceiving me, they will not deceive the fork. Okay, they are actually also ready to go. So, I am going to take I was going to add more juice into this so that I could actually make it easier, but I see that it's not going to let me. It's just got too much in it. So I am going to take in some of the broth. Actually, honey, I need a cup scoop. If you could. Oh, well, you know what? I'll use the ladle. Ah. I are clever. Okay, so I'm going to take some of the broth here and let it cool a little bit. I'm going to add and that's about a cup of broth in here right now. I'll try to get the peas out of it. Okay. And I will add some cool broth to it. Let's make it fun because I may not be able to add all of this to it. Reach and get my. And meanwhile, I'm going to put the lid back on this so it continues to stay hot.
It does smell pretty good. I can smell it from my office, so it's nice.
It does. You can smell the seasonings in it, the rosemary. You can smell the nice beef that's in it, and the vegetables have a nice aroma as well. I am going to take flour. I really should be doing this in a bowl, not in this. And I'm going to set that over here for now and use my fork to whisk up the flour and broth I will use to thicken the stew. And I don't think I can actually get a whisking here and not make a horrible mess, so I am going to be using my fork and only making a little bit of a mess. And I've got 2 cups of liquid in here, and to that I am adding 2 cups of flour. Are you going to take and power blend it for
I
me?
think you then needs power blend.
Okay, I will give it to you and you can power it. Actually, I'm going to give you that too so you can rinse it
I don't
off.
want that.
And while we do that, I am going to hydrate myself with some more drink. I fill up any container.
Yeah.
I don't know how I do it, I just do. And anything that I try to make smaller amount of, which is why I didn't use I try to make a lesser amount. It doesn't matter. I fill out what I use. So if I use a big pot with the same amount of ingredients, somehow I fill the whole thing up. And I think maybe I'll just add an extra potato. How much trouble can I get in just adding a little extra potato? Well, quite a bit as it turns out.
Loud noises!
small pot, and I will fill that up. I never forget one time I was cooking with my cousin Tara, and we were going to test a recipe. So we used a little pot like this, which is a 3-quart saucepan. And I thought, oh, no problem. I will take and I will put in a couple potatoes. And I put in a couple potatoes, and the pot was 3/4 full, just with the potatoes. My cousin laughed her butt off on that one. So, okay. So now I have the thickening agent for my stew. And I am going to add that in as much as I can. And then I'm going to stir it around as much as I can so I don't end up with this being thickened into dumplings, which, isn't actually a bad thing. Dumplings would go really nice with a beef stew. Generally see it with chicken and dumplings, but okay. Funny that I mentioned a dumpling. Okay, so I'm going to tap that out before it turns into it. Now that I've got, ooh, that's a piece of meat. Cool.
Ooh, piece of candy.
Yeah, I need to have you rinse this off so I don't contaminate my sauce with beef. Thank you. And I will finish stirring that in here. So it is starting to turn into gravy already. And what you need to do is let it thicken. And you also need to let it cook the flour taste out. So that's probably another 5 or so minutes. And then we will have a lovely gravy that is in this, as well as all of the meat and vegetables. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to finish stirring this about as much as I can. It's a lot easier to stir this about if you don't have the entire pot full of meat and vegetables.
Yeah, you'd think you'd learn by now.
You would think I would learn, but yet I don't. So it does make for a really fabulous soup, though. So we're good with my filling things up. Okay. All right. So that is down there, and I'm going to put the top on again and lower the heat because the soup is basically done. And I am going to get my little pan out that I am going to make my white sauce in. And so I take and get out a half a stick of butter. That's 4 tablespoons of butter for those of you that like to keep track of these kind of things. Half a stick or 4 tablespoons of butter. I am going to cut it into pieces so that it melts faster. And because the burner's already hot, it probably will be melting pretty darn fast. And there we go with the butter.
Melt.
And
Melt.
it will melt. And and stir it about a bit so that it will melt a little faster. Actually, I don't know if it melts it faster, it just stirs it. I had a really fun time last night, or it was the night before last, and I was talking to a streamer in his stream, and okay, it was Prof Meals, and someone was talking about, because it was Prof's birthday, it was Sunday, and he was eating cake, and he had some people bring him, well, they brought him the cake, they brought him brownies, they brought him hot wings. And someone in stream, I can't remember who, wondered who it was exactly that he wanted to know how many chickens were murdered just for Super Bowl Sunday. And I said, don't be silly. They don't have to kill the chickens. I said, just like the stone crabs they have down in Florida, where they just snap off one claw and the claw grows back, so they don't have to kill them because they're basically endangered. You can do that with chickens too. You just snap off a wing and they regrow the wing. And there was this pause, and Prof saw it, and he said, is that true, Hedgie? And I was laughing by this time, and I said, no, it's not true. It's me being funny. And he goes, well, I didn't want to cry, bull crap on that, but, because it was you. And I'm thinking to myself, yay! I can now make up food myths and have people think they're true. So that was a lot of fun. I don't know whether or not he will enjoy me telling that story, but I sure enjoyed the heck out of it.
Did I tell them some of your embarrassing stories? Because I've got a lot.
No, you cannot. That is covered by the streamer mod confidentiality.
Okay, I'm just going to go and unmod myself now.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. He's like, well, can they regrow wings? And he just said, I would have cried, bull on that, except it was you. So, scar. I now have food cred, even when I'm just making stuff up. He had been streaming a very long time, and there may have been some adult beverages involved before I joined him, I don't know. But it was very funny. Yeah, I know that newts will drop their tail, actually shed their tail and run away in the hopes that whatever is pursuing them will stop, and it will accept the part of it rather than the whole. So,
let's be honest, Mr. Nogatron, do you really think I care about spouse confidentiality?
There are.
I post her embarrassing moments to Facebook.
He does, often in the middle of when it's happening. Well, yeah, that's a lizard thing. It happens with newts. I think that iguanas also might, and some other forms of lizards do the same thing. Yeah, I don't know why people want to cut off a lizard tail, but it would be nice if things growed back like that. I know that my husband, during the time we were dating, he had a couple rats, and one of his rats got his tail stuck and semi-amputated, and he had to take it into the vet to have it removed.
I can't remember that rat's name anymore. I remember one of the rats was... No, there was Rat, and there was a second one.
Zebedee, I think, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, Zebedee, that was the name.
Okay, so now I've cooked the flour, and I am going to whisk in about a cup and a half.
I know what you're trying to say, Mrs. Nogatron, but all I really want to say is, so how happy is your wife?
And I have got that. And I will put it back up on the heat now. So, careful, careful, slosh, slosh, slosh.
Slush, make a mess and I'll kill you.
So I will now stir this and keep it going. To make it into a nice thick white sauce, I am going to pull the pot off of this and double. Oh, that smells so good. I wish I could give away smells on this. It smells so good. So, yeah, this is going to make a nice thick stew.
Hey, look, we have made brown.
Yes, we have. Brown is the flavor of flavor, basically. It's the color of flavor. It very often comes up in my cooking, brown. I will cook one thing and it will be brown, and I will cook another thing and it will be brown. And it's just
Very
different.
good at cooking brown.
I'm very good at cooking brown, whether that is lamb stew or beef stew or, sauteed lamb that I make a gravy and we put over with mashed potatoes. And once again, it's brown, and all of our pictures are brown. So, but they all taste wonderful. Okay. I need to borrow my husband. Can you come out and taste this and see if it needs salt?
You know what my answer is?
Well, no, that's why I'm asking you to test it. See if it needs anything.
Actually, yeah, that does need some salt.
Okay.
There's no taste of salt.
Okay. So I will get this moving again. And then got a little bit of lumpage starting there, but I have whisked it out. And
Delumpify it. Yes, I'm behind you now.
yes, I can hear you. Thank you for tickling my neck when I'm reaching over really hot things, honey.
You're welcome.
Oh, why is that stuck?
Yeah, she doesn't need anything. I'm loving some sock. Lots of sock. Are you having trouble with the salt plot again?
I'm looking at whatever that black thing is. So I'm going to mix the salt through that. And it didn't taste doughy to you, so the flour's cooked?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. It would have tasted like uncooked bread if it had not been cooked.
I've never eaten uncooked bread, so I wouldn't know what it tastes like.
Tastes like flour that's raw.
I've never eaten raw flour, so I wouldn't know what it tastes like.
Oh, you are so helpful today, sweetheart.
At which point in our marriage vows did I ever promise to be helpful?
Let's see. Love, honor, obey.
There was no obeying.
I remember it with an obey.
There was no obeying.
Tasting of recipes,
Nope.
supporting of streams.
Nope.
I clearly remember this in our vows. I do.
Well, one of us was clearly drunk, and it wasn't me.
Yeah, that's because the room service liquor was too expensive. We should have stopped at one of the drive-through liquor stores they had in Nevada.
No, we should have gone to a strip club.
You mean that shiny one way the hell out in the desert? Yeah, we came across a really interesting place when we were driving through the Nevada deserts, and yeah, it had neon. It was very attractive, way out in the desert before you reached Reno or Las Vegas. And I do believe it might have been a brothel.
It wasn't the most interesting thing on that drive, though.
No.
We were in the middle of the desert, and, you know, human nature, you need to go to the restroom, so we were about to pull into a restroom, and it's middle of the night, pitch black, and as we pull in the middle of the road is a stick on fire. Mm-hmm. No one's around, just this stick on fire, and we both looked at each other and went, I can hold it.
Yeah, it was a tiny little restroom. They had like basically two stalls, one for men, one for women, and the lighting wasn't good. The brightest thing out there was that stick that was just burning, and there was no other cars around, and there was no reason for that stick to be on fire, and it was just a little creepy.
It was a lot creepy.
We did not. Tina Bug says, "Oh, you found my torch." You're still cranky with me because I made you destroy your best torch last night, aren't you? Anyway, this sauce is getting very thick. It is about the texture now of custard, which is, I want it to be a little thicker than this before I add it to...
Carry on.
Before I add it to the vegetable stock. And as you can see from this, it actually makes nice strings. Is that for me?
No, that's for me.
Oh.
I'm not getting my Coke.
I will say also that my husband, Andrew, called Andrew Mantis here on Twitch, and lots of other places actually too, but he's going to start streaming again. So I am very much hoping that you will all give him a try. He is a variety streamer.
Wow, you did that without moving your hands away.
Yeah, I know. It's like I have another set of hands. I have 4 hands, 2 that are much bigger than my own. Yeah, he's going to start streaming. He'll be doing games like Skyrim and probably No Man's Sky, and although he
Whatever
does
takes
like
my fancy.
what's that one you like? Satisfactory?
Satisfactory's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I do all kinds of games.
Minecraft, things like that. Unfortunately, TLD doesn't interest him, but hopefully I'll upgrade my computer and I'll start streaming that. So anyway, this is thick. It's like runny mashed potatoes at this point, and that's about the thickness that I want it to be. My soup is still hot. I'm turning the temperature off on that. I have turned the temperature off under the other. And so you can see it here.
Give it up.
Ooh, that's hot.
Hot.
I am going to add in the bechamel now.
13 times now.
It's actually more than that, but I don't tell you every time I burn myself.
It's only when you declare it out loud.
Okay. And here's this for you to take away.
Is there a PG way of saying...
No. So now I'm going to take and mix this in with the broth to make a very creamy broth. So this is going to make me a very lovely creamy vegetable soup with black beans in it for the protein source. I am going to put that back up on the burner now. And probably, whoa, is that heavy? I am going to put that up under a medium heat. Start parceling up the first of my soups. Oh dear, I'm getting another hedgehog presented to me. You need to be the one that does him.
This is mine. Well, it's not the very same one, but I had one of these when I was a very small child. And it's called Albert. And it's a hedgehog as well, so there's kind of an irony to her being so interested in hedgehogs. Is it irony or just destiny or something?
It's a bit of irony, yeah.
Bit of irony, bit of destiny.
Bit of irony. Okay, so the first soup I am going to dish up here to be photographed is going to be the stew. I think I might put that in a red pot. It might look prettier in a red pot.
I don't know. Both all look kind of the same to me.
Well, they don't to me.
Because you can see colours and I
put
cannot.
that over there. And this has got a little bit of excess water in the bottom. And I'm going to get rid of. Just because I'm fussy. Alright, so I have got this very thick stew here now. It would actually work as the bottom part of a cottage pie.
You've got a beef spoon.
There's spoons over here.
Yeah, you've got a beef spoon I can use. Beef spoon!
So I'm going to put this in here. And then take and clean off the rim.
Oh, some of the jokes said all the time.
And then finish it with a sprinkle.
Yeah, green stuff.
Finish it with a sprinkle of weird green stuff.
Hydrate!
And
Hydrate!
hydrate! You gotta double hydrate, and you're hydrated as well.
You owe us 100
So
gold coins.
here is this beautiful vegetable beef stew. Andrew's gonna take it for a picture. You'll have to add salt to it too.
Is that in my office? I've got salt in there.
Yeah. The pictures from the top seem to work the best, sweetheart.
I'm taking multiple pictures.
Let's see. I've got another soup spoon for the husband. Or actually for me, he can use the one that already has beef on it. That one is off. And here's my creamy vegetable soup. That's yours.
My spoon.
And he's going to go in the office and taste that for you. And I've got my
From the office.
creamy vegetable soup.
Water? Who drinks water these days? Water's for chumps. I like my Coke in there. Not hats.
This is not yours. This is mine.
Alright. So
What else you
we
drinking?
have got
I drink a lot of coffee during the day. Does that count?
no, not so much. Turn the heat
Shut up.
off under that.
I didn't ask your opinion.
I'm going to taste it before it's photographed. Add a little bit of extra salt to mine because I tasted the rim and it needs salt.
Ooh, hot. Hot, hot, hot. Blow, blow, blow.
But is it lovely, rich, and beefy?
Well, I'm not finding any gold rings in there, so it's not rich. Oh, that's the urban legend.
He feels if you drink enough of the coffee, you can overcome the dehydrating effects of the caffeine.
There is no dehydration effects to caffeine. That's an old urban legend.
Oh, that's
It's like
so
carrots
lovely.
and seen in the dark.
This is so lovely. It is rich and creamy. I can taste all of the vegetables I used in here. I can taste the peas. I can taste the beans, the little black beans that are in here. The green beans that are fresh are lovely and tender and add a lovely herbaceousness to this. The potatoes are in there. You can taste the tomato and the seasonings that I put in here, the parsley and the sage you can taste the rosemary. And it's just a really lovely vegetable soup.
Mine's pretty much the same, but it's got a nice beefness to it.
And yours isn't creamy.
It's
So,
not creamy.
here we have, and I will lift
Bye
this
bye
up
bye
to
boss
the
mama.
camera here. This is my lovely creamy vegetable soup. Andrew has my beef vegetable soup, and that is it for this show, basically. We've got the two soups, and the recipes will be up on my Discord after stream, and the pictures will be posted later. Please join me on my next posted day, could be Thursday, could be Friday, for making chicken a la king. And then I will have a Saturday stream of I'm not sure what yet. So, who have we got here? We have got the AFK Kitchen. Why don't we go to raid the AFK Kitchen? Her name is Kathy. She lives close to me and within about 30 miles. And she does a charity stream where they are cooking. All of the money that they get goes into feeding children and for a children's hospital. So it is a worthy thing to watch. Thank you all for coming. Tina Buck, thank you so much for the gift subs. That is so generous of you, and I'm so glad you made it. I'm glad you all made it. Thank you, Mrs. Nagatron. Thank you, Badass Mama. And thank you, Kind Al, for when you stopped in. And we will see you next time.
Bye, people.